there's been some issues with YouTube, so hopefully.
Well, it says we're live streaming. I hope we're live streaming.
Yep.
Bryn, thank you very much for the side-by-side. It was very helpful. I'll let each senator speak for themselves about any concerns with the House version. I will just state the biggest, I have several concerns, and I shared them with Senator Baruth earlier today. So I guess I'll call on Phil to express your concern about the repeal of the crime. I believe a repeal of the crime. Is that
the sunset, yeah. So I think that sunsets are sometimes useful in terms of getting a bill out of committee or getting it to the floor or whatever. But if you look at it in terms of what it does, we're having a very painful national conversation now. Out of that, our committee decided to create prohibited restraints, and we felt that it was important to attach penalties to that, which are on a graduated scale, but which go up to legal penalties, including prison time and fines. The House agreed with that language, didn't change it at all. What they did do was say that in a year we have to have the argument again. Right. And I don't know why we would do that unless, and I'm not putting this intent on the House committee because I don't think it was their intent. But if you wanted to kick this out to a place when the national conversation had died down and the protesters were no longer in the streets, and when perhaps the governor had moved past his last re-election, this sunset is exactly what you would do. So it's the one piece of what the House did that I don't understand and I couldn't agree with. The rest I think is workable.
I'll just express that I was troubled by the body cam delay. Having worked for almost 6 years trying to establish our state police officers having body cams, having worked on the model policy law with extensive testimony in this committee, and I can visualize I believe it was the Windsor Police Department that came in with photos, or it might have been Springfield, but it was one of the Windsor County police departments that had photos of various stops and what a major difference it made having body cameras. So we've been trying to get the state to do it, to delay that until we have policies that are acceptable to such a diverse group of people that are listed in the intent section is troubling for me. And then Senator White, you had some issues.
Yeah, I have the same concerns about the body cam one, and I think that in 124 we
I
asked.
want to just so I share Senator Bruce's concern too, just so I'm clear.
Yeah, I do too, and I also have some the same concern about the body cam one, and we currently do have a policy, and in 124 we asked for those people to come in with suggested changes to the policy that may need to be addressed in January. But I also have a real concern, and although I know it's just in the intent section, I think there are two things in there that are very bothersome to me. And one is requiring accreditation from that organization within 5 years, and it doesn't specify who's going to have to be accredited within 5 years. Each agency has to do its own accreditation, and the academy has to do a separate accreditation. So it doesn't specify, it just says that everybody will be accredited within 5 years, that's the intent. And the other thing that is very bothersome to me is that it says the intent is to move the training council to Department of Public Safety. And in 124, we asked for there to be a study of where physically the academy is located and where organizationally it should be located. And it may not be that the best place is the Department of Public Safety. It may be, but it could be, for example, VTC. And it isn't the training council that would be located under DPS, because what we heard is that regardless of where the academy lives, that there should be an somewhat independent advisory training council. So I have very concerns about that section, and I know it's just in the intent, but it says that the intent is to move it to DPS.
Other concerns that have not been mentioned? So,
The
Yep.
the only other thing I would note is that on the prohibited restraint crime, they've moved the date out to October 1st.
yeah, I don't understand that either.
My guess is that it was meant to allow for the possibility that we might repeal or change our work in August. But I'm fine with that as long as we can get rid of the sunset. So that might be a potential way to
Well,
compromise with
it's
that.
interesting because the reason that we split the use of force bill and these other things that are in S 219 was because the House didn't feel that they could have time to deal with the use of force. And I was not understanding, I guess, that they were going to make wholesale changes today, which is the last day. So I wrote Representative Grad an email. She gave her reasons for the two changes I mentioned, the body camera, and I'll read them to you when I can get them up on my other screen here and find them. But so I talked to Bryn about concurring with further proposal of amendment. I'm not sure that's gonna mean much, but and I had to write the proposal for the body cameras and the repeal of the new law.
So for you all.
I'll
who
read
are-
what I'll
oh,
read what
Go ahead.
Dick, I appreciate your concerns. There was a lot of concern around the new crime. Many folks didn't want it in at all, even folks who supported a new crime. I don't know why people who supported new crime didn't win at all. The sunset was a way to commit to continue to work on it as well as justifiable homicide. I know your committee knows that law needs to be revisited, certainly. And without the sunset and changed effective date, the crime would most likely have come out and the vote would not have been as strong. In terms of body cameras, there's concern a policy be in place and a strong policy similar to the ACLU's.
Read that again.
In terms of body cameras, the delay in body cameras, there was a concern that a policy be in place before we require state police to have body cameras and a strong policy similar to the ACLU's.
There is a policy right now,
I know.
we've asked- and we've asked for them to look at that and bring back
know.
changes that might
I know.
need to be made, but we do have a policy. The state police do.
I did not write her of your concerns.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that those changes that you pointed out, Senator White, are things that were done by the House Government Operations Committee.
I don't know.
I don't know that, but so that's where we're at. I would suggest that for purposes that Bryn can do it, we concur with further proposal of amendment unless Senator Benning or Senator Nitko, do you have any
I'm
comments?
absolutely opposed to delaying the body cameras. If we can somehow get by that.
Joe, I know you spoke about that part, the justifiable homicide. They did repeal that, but that's a year out. Which I don't have an opposition to.
I don't really have any opposition to that either. I'm just wondering about the body cameras, whether their concern was having the policy specify when the camera is supposed to be on. Is that
The
what
policy is very clear about that. if you
right
want,
now.
the current policy is, I have it here.
Is it generally when there's contact between the officer and and somebody else?
It's,
When they're on law enforcement duties with the public, I believe.
And it's a shall, it says they shall have it activated.
Yeah, I don't know.
it is, they shall, they have, well, first, it says when they have to, have it on. It is, it's a very long policy, and I, am looking to see exactly
I think it says shall when they're
in an,
when they're
do you have,
in there typing up something in the barracks or wherever, they don't have to have it on, but when they're interacting with the public, they do. I believe
think-
that's the,
I think that identifies what I heard from some of the House members, that they also want the cameras on when police are talking to each other, not necessarily interacting with the public. And I don't know if that's been identified yet. You may have heard last night on the news, there was, I think, Wilmington,
okay,
Delaware
Here's-
was talking about the 3 officers who were talking between each other and talking about how they wanted to pull a bullet in somebody, and there were all kinds of racial epithets going on. So the House members have picked up on that and said, we've got to have a policy that requires them to be on when the officers
But-
are just talking to each other.
oh,
on the other hand, Burlington and other police departments around the state have body cameras. Our state police don't.
So
So,
many towns have
here's-
body cameras already and seem to be doing
Yeah.
fine with them.
here's what it says. All calls for service in which citizen contact is made, all traffic stops, all citizen transports, including ride-alongs, all investigatory stops, all foot pursuits, when arriving at law enforcement events or citizen contacts initiated by other officers, other incidents where the officer reasonably believes that there might be an adversarial event afterwards. And it's arrests of any person, searches, seizures, requests for consent to search, Miranda warnings, citizen statements made by citizens and defendants, canine searches of vehicles, and issuance of written violations. And it does not say officer to officer contact, but that would mean that if you're sitting in the barracks having coffee, you have to have your,
Yep.
The point that I'm trying to make, Jeanette, especially after last night's newscast, is that systemic inherent ideas come out from police officers when they are simply together in a group.
yes,
And the policy that you've just read does not include that scenario. So people who are concerned about the systemic involvement are believing that these internal conversations between police officers are likely to expose that systemic belief.
I'm
And
not
that's
sure,
why that's-
I'm not sure that we're actually opposed to that.
No,
My
I don't.
concern
I
is,
agree.
should we wait
right.
for new policies to get our state police with body cameras under current policy so that they're equal with Burlington and Springfield and whatever other police departments have body, I mean, Winhall has body cameras.
Even Ludlow has body
I-
cameras.
I'm
You
not
know, so-
I'm not suggesting we
Yeah.
delay. I'm suggesting that this might
No, I
be
understand.
of what they're-
So-
I appreciate
So-
that perspective, Joe.
So we have asked for any changes to come in January, any suggested changes by people to come to us in January around the policy and the changes that should be made. And I think that something like that might be a request that comes in for a policy change. And it will take some additional testimony, because that really means that they have them on all the time. All the time while they're on duty.
Because we're,
And because they are constantly going to be having conversations with each other, even in an offhanded manner. If they're sitting doing paperwork and somebody walks by and they have a comment. So I think that
good,
change needs to have additional testimony. And I And I think that to delay it because for that purpose is, they're using them now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that the only way that I can see somebody objecting to having them go on, the cameras go on now, is if they feel as though it would produce a worse situation than we have. And I can't see how that would be the case. Even if it's not ideal, we'll have more than we have now.
right.
And then it'll get better in January. But if we delay, we have nothing
Yeah.
until January. So it's like the sunset of the other crime. It doesn't make sense to me, other than, advocates were in a general way saying that they wanted, and you see the language about, in the intent section, it says, we agree to engage in a meaningful dialogue. And so I think in part, maybe it's to say, let's create this space where nothing happens until that dialogue occurs. But there are some things that just make sense to do now. And one of those is to ban chokeholds. Another is to turn on body cameras. And that makes us all safer in the meanwhile. And I don't get the arguments for why you would delay those things.
Okay, so I'm going through this. Bryn, somehow I shut my video off and
Can I just ask a question too?
but don't forget, we've only got about 5
Right.
more minutes.
So I'm wondering why we don't know that they even read that list that Jeanette has. Why don't we send that over as part of the proposal?
Okay, I guess we could do that, but Bryn needs to be able to draft something.
Yep, send that.
Well,
over as part of the proposal.
There's 7,
Right.
5, there's 14, 12 different things in the list that we did. I don't know that, and it's in a separate bill, and they're going to take that up in August when we come back. House Gov Ops is.
Well.
So
I would like to concur with further proposal of amendment.
Yes,
And Bryn, you've already drafted Senator Bruce's concern, the body camera language. Can you
And just,
draft?
What
Go
does-
ahead.
I
And
just
Yeah.
just wanted to make clear what I think makes sense is to get rid of the sunset on the new
Right.
crime, but to accept their October 1st timing as a give and take.
Okay.
And if you're able to present it to Representative Grad as, we can't accept this, but we'll reluctantly accept that, maybe that's enough in that instance.
I'm not sure at this point that I could do that. That we'll get that.
Philip?
Well, I don't mean for the whole, I mean just for that part of.
Yeah, I don't sure that's the problem.
Okay,
I wouldn't even, I just think every state not every state, almost every state has come out to ban a state, New York passed it a week ago.
Yeah.
We should be passing it today. It should be effective today.
okay.
And
I'm all for that.
I'm really troubled by the idea that we're gonna delay that prohibited restraint language for another 2 months, 3 months. Yeah, 3 months.
Okay,
can I make
Bryn?
the suggestions that I would have for Bryn?
Yes,
On the part that says, that talks about the accreditation, just take out within the next 5 years. Because we can be continuing to look at whether or not we should be asking people to be accredited, but they're saying that they want it done within 5 years, and it isn't clear about who it is that they want accredited.
So I can certainly do that. I did want to point out that the sentence that language appears in is talking about what standing committees of jurisdiction are currently studying. So it says that the standing committees are currently looking at that as an issue. It doesn't actually say that it's the intent of the General Assembly to do that. But regardless, I'm still happy to do that.
Okay, and then I would take out the intent one to move it to DPS, to move the training council, because it isn't the training council that would get moved anyway, it's the academy.
I thought
I'd take that out completely. I mean, that can be, we've already got that in 124 to be looked at. And if we want to put it in there that we should have a review of where it should physically and organizationally be situated, the academy, not the training council, it's the academy itself. We can put that in there, but I don't know that'll make them happy.
I don't know either, but at least we try. Is that it?
So where are we with the body cameras?
We want them the way we had them.
Okay,
Yeah.
and give them the list that Jeanette read of when they have to be turned on. Perhaps they don't realize those circumstances.
Oh, that's
That's
the current
presumptuous.
policy. The policy is very long. It's like 5 pages.
We could send it to them.
So I think that they know about the policy. They're concerned. They heard quite a bit of testimony from the ACLU, and I think that their concern was that they didn't, there were stakeholders that didn't like the policy. And so that was why they put in the intent section that everybody would work on the policy.
And I'm not, it's not a problem to have everybody work on the
Right.
policy. The problem is delaying the purchase of them. When,
And the
when we finally-
implementation of them.
so if the concur with further proposal amendment leaves the intent language in, I'm okay with that. As long as we are clear that they can buy them tomorrow or as soon as
Use them.
as soon as,
Yes,
because they need to buy them first. Then they need to deal with the storage issue in the big bill that's coming up in August. And that's why we put in the language. So I may have misled you on, if they want to continue to study it, it's fine with me. I just want to study, I want to get the damn things on the cops right now, our troopers. No reason why Winhall should have body cameras and the trooper in the Shaftesbury Barracks who covers Winhall doesn't.
I agree.
I agree.
So I'm
I mean,
getting
that's
some,
one of the smallest towns in the state, so. Yep. I'm sorry.
no,
Really?
I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm getting some messages, and I think that the House would just like to make sure that the committee understands that the legislative intent section is just legislative intent to work on these issues and not and nothing greater than
I
that.
think what Senator
I
Senator White,
think that
Senator White has a problem with that.
yeah, I think that is wrong. It says the intent is to relocate it. It doesn't say the intent is to study it. It says the intent is to relocate it to the Department of Public Safety.
It commits to working on, yes, it commits to working on resituating.
Yes, it already comes to the conclusion that that's where it should be.
So it's C2 that you have a problem with.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
Reinstituting the Criminal Justice Training Council jurisdiction. So are the rest of them okay with you?
Yeah, I mean, all of this stuff should be studied, but we can't come to the conclusions until we've studied them, in my opinion.
So all we need to do then, I think, Corinne, is those 3 things. Are you,
Okay, so the amendment that you have posted to your website returns the body camera, all the body camera provisions to as they exist in the Senate version.
Yep.
And it also removes the repeal for the new crime, but
Right.
it does leave the effective date as October for the crime.
I think it should, with a crime is okay, I guess.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. The crime of prohibited restraint.
Yeah, they moved the date out to October
So
1st.
if somebody were to, assuming that we could pass this, and someone were to die in a Floyd case, we would have set an October 1st date, and it occurred in, the month of August.
I guess, Dick, I completely agree with you. It's just, I'm thinking this may be the only shot we have at concurring with further proposal of amendment.
Right.
I don't know that there's going to be time to have another round.
All right.
So I'm willing to give them that if they will get rid of the
Right.
repeal.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Are we agreement? Senator Nicker and I have to rush over to the Appropriations Committee.
We do?
Yeah, 1:30.
Okay.
That all sounds good, what we've discussed so far to me.
Yes, I'm good with
Yeah.
it.
Can everybody live with that, Bryn?
Yes.
So the
Have
things
they
that I'll
passed third reading yet?
No, it hasn't been on the floor yet for debate.
If you send me a copy of that, I would at least send it to Representative Grad and say, would you be willing to amend the bill before third reading to do these things?
Yeah,
And I'll send a note to Sarah Copeland Hanses in case some of that came out of their committee.
I would guess that the Criminal Justice Training Council piece came out of their committee.
Probably.
All right. Thank
Okay.
you all very much.
Will we
Appreciate
be
it.
meeting again today, Senator Sears, or no?
I hope not.
Okay, but I should be on
Thank you.
call just in case, or no?
Yeah, you may want to be.
Okay.
We may have shuttle diplomacy by Zoom.
Okay, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Bryn, thank you.
Sure.
I need the.
Peggy,
Thanks.
thank you. See
Bye.
you all in a minute.
Bye.
In half an hour.
Well,
No, I thought we had you approach at 1 or 12:30, 1:30.